Alrighty, how's it going everyone, and welcome back to a brand new unboxing and review. If you aren't familiar with us, welcome to you as well. I'm Jonathan with Boston Collectors, and today we'll be unboxing and reviewing Captain Vaughn from the animated series, The Clone Wars. Wrapped around the front lid of the shoebox style packaging, we have the yellow and blue cigar band featuring Captain Vaughn and his release information. Resting just above that, we have the reflective embossed Star Wars logo. On the left and right side of the packaging, the cigar wrap continues. This allows for storing the box in a particular way that would allow you to identify it easier. Do you prefer the product info or the photo? Or do you just not care and shove the box in storage? For the back, we have the warnings, store locations, and legal info. Not much to see here. Located on the top and bottom of the box, you'll be met with the standard Star Wars logo. And lastly, decorating the center of the packaging is the prototype of Captain Vaughn. I'm not sure why this image wasn't updated, but I'm not too concerned with it. Just curious how this works with Disney. On the inside, we're met with an art card featuring Captain Vaughn wielding the DC-15A long rifle and a few Photoshop effects on top. If you're enjoying what you see so far, don't forget to like and subscribe for future content. And as a small note, we didn't delve into the cinematic lighting too much for this one. Due to a slight saturation change in his paint application, we wanted you to see him under multiple lighting conditions. Let's start with the antennas. It isn't too difficult setting these into place, but if you aren't aware, you might be doing it wrong. Rather than accidentally snapping or breaking any of the pieces, I personally recommend taking off the shoulder guard. It looks good, right? Maybe even like yours. Well, wrong. This piece isn't fully attached. Instead, what you want to do is attach the piece starting at the bottom. You'll feel the click as you push it into place. Now it's properly set without any issues. If you're careful, you may not even have to take the shoulder piece off. However, for $250, I'm going to be careful. After placing the shoulder piece back on, you're all set. For the helmet antenna, you can't get this wrong, as it's meant to key in a certain way. Simply plug the piece in, applying a subtle amount of pressure. This is another delicate piece, so if you wanted to, you could pop the helmet off to insert it just in case. While Captain Vaughn is already pre-equipped with a flashlight, if you're wondering, previous accessories will not attach to his helmet. As far as hands, we have the typical gestures, which can be seen from a few of Hot Toys' previous releases. For the left hand, we have the pointing gesture for commands. We also have a left-handed thumb gesture included as well. On the right hand, we have what Hot Toys consider a multi-use gesture. Captain Vaughn can direct his troops, or what Hot Toys consider a hologram hand. Speaking of holograms, included with his release, we have the Holocaster and a few holograms. This is the first time we've seen Captain Rex in hologram form, but for some reason he's missing a holstered pistol in his jetpack. Next, we have Ahsoka Tano, which we've seen previously. If you have any extras lying around, you can also substitute them if you wish. I personally prefer using the neutral hands to hold the Holocaster. That way it isn't teetering or falling over in my display cabinet. Speaking of neutral hands, a pair is pre-equipped on the figure right out of the box. Unlike Captain Rex, who didn't come with a pair of relaxed hands, I'm just happy to see a pair here. It makes using previous accessories like the detonator fun. They can also be used to hold the DC-15C included with his release, which segue us perfectly into the pair of trigger hands. It's a bit difficult getting him to hold the weapons, but at least they aren't going anywhere. The DC-15C carbine is the standard issue blaster, which is no different from the previous releases. If you have one, then you've seen them all. That isn't to take away from the detailing in the rifle, it's just redundant after a while. Speaking of, Captain Vaughn has also provided a DC-15A long rifle. Similar to the carbine we just shared, this is another case of seeing one and seeing them all. And again, it isn't to take away from the detail work, I just have a pile of them. If those aren't enough, and maybe you have other weapons lying around, he can hold them without a problem. Next, we have his jetpack. Very similar to Cody, right? Well, this is technically Cody's model. The Star Wars art team just reused it and painted him a little bit differently. Anyway, it magnetizes nicely to his back without any issues. And lastly, we have the standard issued base featuring the tinfoil nameplate. There isn't much to see here, unfortunately, so you aren't missing out. Included with the base is the typical crotch stand. We never saw him fly, so he wasn't given a flight pole nor the flame effects for his jetpack. When you're all set with a pose, simply adjust the crotch stand and place him on. When Vaughn's prototype came out, there was backlash due to the inaccuracy of the paint beneath his visor. Luckily enough, which we shouldn't be saying for figures worth $250, that was changed. As mentioned earlier, this is essentially Cody rescanned as another character, so Hot Toys were able to reuse previous assets for his release. With that in mind, I'm happy to say I like how his helmet turned out. The torch, visor, and antenna look phenomenal. For comparisons, there are a few differences to note. There's an obvious change in the grille below the nose, and a very minor change in the divot on the piece between the respirators as well. Cody's torch is a little sad due to being an older figure, and I unfortunately broke the antenna for this segment due to him falling over. Speaking of the antenna, if you can get your hands on one from Captain Vaughn, you could replace Cody's with it. It just won't be accurate, is all. Getting back on topic, don't let this side-by-side fool you. The dirt and grime make it appear as if there's a change in the helmet design, but there isn't. For the back, it's the same thing, it's just more weathering on Cody than there is on Vaughn. Lastly, we have the right side profile. Apart from the obvious paint differences on the antenna and the helmet, there isn't really much to point out here. There isn't a portrait for this release, but hey, we also never saw his face. I'm happy to report Vaughn's body is pretty much the same as the Coruscant Guard and Captain Rex. With that said, we have the double jointed elbows, a cut at both biceps, and butterfly joints in the shoulders. This allowed for a wide range of play and posing while handling the figure. As we move down, the legs are only ratcheted moving front to back and not laterally. There's a cut on both thighs, double bends in the knee, and a split between the armor and the ankle for the feet to move freely. If anything, the belt isn't exactly accurate to the show. Some of the pouches should be gray and they're only white. However, the midsection is correct in terms of the gray coloring. For comparisons, Vaughn is slightly more saturated in color than the previous clones, who appear a bit deeper in blue. Even compared to Rex, there's a difference, but nothing that would really break your attention. On the left, we have Vaughn, and on the right, a 501st clone. Hot Toys didn't just reissue the armor painting for Captain Vaughn, which is great to see. You'll notice a gray strip and a change in the elbow guards as well as all of the hand guards. Not to mention a gray communication pad. Vaughn's thermal canister is also different from the previous releases. And as mentioned before, the midsection is a grayish tone to match what was seen in the show. And lastly, we have the obvious change being the rank badge on Vaughn's chest. If you wanted, you could make him another character in your collection by swapping armor pieces around. While Vaughn does appear a bit more saturated, it doesn't make him stand out from the rest of your figures. Let's go ahead and begin. Here we have the 332nd clone with a softer appearance to his paint application versus Vaughn, who's, again, a bit more saturated. As we put him in a group, you'll see that he isn't disrupting the flow of his brothers. As for Rex, the blue is almost the same. You'll have to be pretty picky to point it out, but I have to let you know since we're reviewing it. Again, in a group situation, you really can't tell the difference unless you're specifically looking for it. And lastly, we have Ahsoka, which together they look really good. Having Commander Rex, Advisor Tano, and Captain Vaughn in a group, you couldn't go wrong. But it could be better. Ah, there we go. Now we just need Jesse to finish this out. I'm gonna be straightforward with this one, so excuse me. I love this figure, but I really don't feel like it was worth the $250 price point. I'm glad to have Captain Vaughn in my collection, but if I had the chance to use a coupon and some reward points, I would have felt a lot better about it. Considering we have figures like Rex available for $255 and Ahsoka Tano for $250, to name a few, Vaughn should have been around the $220 territory, especially not having a portrait. With that said, I'm giving him an 8 out of 10 for this release, and that's including the price point. I would like Hot Toys to also consider including replaceable antennas as well, because long term you're asking for a problem if they happen to topple over. As always, if you enjoyed our content today, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Join us over on Discord and share your thoughts with us during figure announcements, releases, and in between. This is Jonathan with Boston Collectors, and as always, it doesn't matter what we rate the figure. If you like it, we love it. Catch you on the flippity flop.